This is Erica Norton, and I'm the founder of Perfect Legal Video. I'm very excited to have with us today Attorney Nicole Reeves Lavallee. She owns a family and real estate law firm in the Worcester area, and she and her team are fantastic. And we're very fortunate to have her with us almost every week talking about topics that have to do with those areas of law. And today we're going to talk about a brand new topic that goes under the family law um, area, and it's going to be about homeschooling. And it's something that a lot of people don't think about unless you're in that situation. And I personally don't know a ton of people that are homeschooling, but recently married into a family where there is some homeschooling going on with one of the sisters. So, and it seems like a great program. She's brilliant. So, it's not as easy as it looks, though. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Welcome to the show, Nicole.
Thanks for having me.
You are welcome. And I'm really excited to hear what your experience and opinions are on homeschooling. Do you see this a lot within divorce, or I guess after divorce, even when people are trying to make those decisions and maybe they don't agree?
Yeah, we can see it anytime, obviously, we have children involved in the court system. One of the things we're going to look at is again, do we have legal custody? Because we're going to have to start with whoever has legal custody gets to make that determination. And if it's joint, then we jointly have to make that decision. So it definitely comes up because we're always talking about schools. Which school are they going to go to? My household? No, your household. No, I want to go to the magnet. No, I want to do homeschooling. So it's a topic that comes up quite frequently, at least in conversation. Now, how many people are homeschooling versus real school? It's probably less than 10%, but that's still a huge amount of people that are addressing the homeschool issues on a regular basis.
I mean, it's true. And, they have conferences for homeschooling and, where you can go and you can pick out courses for, the kids. And there are even groups of families, especially during COVID, that started doing homeschooling and maybe hiring one teacher to teach what they call a pod, I think. Is that correct?
Yeah, generally, again, it depends on how many people you have together, but there are some classes that you can do, and you're doing it basically by Zoom for that one particular class, whether you don't have the skills or it's something that needs to have specialized education on. But yeah, it's a great thing that the curriculum is geared more toward your child rather than the overall community. So there are definitely benefits to it.
I mean, that's absolutely true. Um, and I think it's great that you can bring an expert in when you need to, because we all had our favorite classes when we were in school, and it's not necessarily all of the curriculum that needs to be taught in a year.
Absolutely. And we all need help. The reality is, even everyone that went through school, great, I can know math up to a certain level, and then it gets higher, and you're like, what? And then you hear about the newfangled math, and you're like, what? So there's definitely things that you're going to have to learn. So having somebody there, even if it's another parent that's going to come in and help you for a particular day or an expert, it's definitely beneficial.
I mean, don't get me started on that elementary school math. That this seems more complicated. Why are there so many more numbers? Why do I have to take up an entire sheet of paper to do division now? This is insanity. And it's hard to teach them like what you used to know. So it's definitely good to bring in somebody that went through the training on that that new math. I mean, I don't know if they're even doing algebra earlier too, I think. I'm pretty much doing okay still. We're going into seventh grade. I'm hoping I'm still gonna hold my muster in this, but you never know.
There will be a time that you won't be, but who knows? Like I said, the good thing is you're not homeschooling, so you don't have to learn it as much as your daughter does.
Yeah, it's not COVID anymore when everybody was sort of homeschooling. So what do you find? to be some of the challenges and how do you get around the challenges? I'm sure that there are arguments for and against homeschooling amongst parents that are divorced or separated. And I never even thought about this aspect, to be honest. So this is really interesting. I can't wait to hear your experience.
Well, I think it really boils down to, again, where are the parents? Education wise, work wise, obviously you can't homeschool if you're both working 80 hours a week. So was a parent a stay at home mom or stay at home dad? Do they have the educational level to do that? So we have to start with those things. Then, assuming we have an agreement, we have to get the city to approve it and the schools to approve it. So you actually have to apply, go through the application process and get approved, because you can't just say, I'm taking my child out of school. The police will be knocking on your door otherwise. So you have to go through the process. And then one of the things in the process is you have to show them your curriculum. And it's only for a certain period of time, and you can do it per quarter, and depending on, again, the school district and what they're looking for, because each one's a little bit different, but you at least have that curriculum that you're going to say what subjects, what we're talking about. I just had somebody the other day that was talking about, they're doing science, and science involves the oceans and animals there, and they got off on a tangent and we're talking about whales and them for hours on end. So you got to make sure that you're staying on target and that it fits into one of the curriculum. But that's kind of the biggest thing, because you also have to, as a teacher slash mother father, you then have to submit that to the school every period of time. And again, that's going to vary, but it's usually weekly, as to what you taught your child.
Well,
But I
can
think
I ask a question? Is there a certain curriculum that I mean, because I think you can buy classes and that sort of thing, but I mean, it's a great point that you make that it kind of has to match what the school's district is doing. Do they have a suggested curriculum that you purchase, or do they kind of just let you pick from certain options?
generally it's picks from certain options. So you get to have, you have 3 subjects in science. You can do this topic, or this topic. And at some point, you're probably going to cover all of the 3 topics that I just mentioned, but you can do them at different times. So you can kind of pick, like, I'm going to do this one now. It's a little bit different when you're talking about history, that you want to follow history chronologically because it makes sense. So there's certain things that you go, you can't really do that. But you can talk about the Civil War from beginning to end at once, and that's a whole topic, but you don't want to start at the end of the Civil War. So, certain things you have to do in some type of chronology, but other things are literally picking the topics and picking the areas. And again, depending on where your school district is, it can be very generic. So it really depends on how detailed your district is.
I mean, that's really interesting because I mean, in the end, the goal is that they're going to have the equivalent of a high school degree, right? So they take their GED when they get to a certain age. Is there other testing that they do along? I mean, I imagine there's other testing. Is it like a state testing that they do as they advance in the grades?
There is definitely testing that is done, and it is graded. Some obviously is, the regular stuff is graded theoretically by the parent, but that parent is also showing it to the appropriate people that are kind of checking their work and saying, yeah, that's good or not good. But yes, there's going to be testing. You have to take testing and you have to pass, if you will. I think the benefits, if you will, is that you're never late for school. You roll out of bed. Here you go. I'm ready. You don't have to get dressed. So there are those benefits, but on the flip side of that is you don't have that daily interaction with all the other peers. And sometimes that's a good thing. Sometimes that's a bad thing. Again, it depends on your child. But where are we going to go from there? Is your child outspoken and is no problem going up to people and start having a conversation? Or are they really introverted, and homeschooling might make it worse, might make it even more of a setback than anything? So you really kind of got to look at that when you're making that decision of, is it right for my child?
I mean, we all remember the challenges of going through the different grades. I mean, certainly junior high is a tough one for a lot of kids because that's a big change. There's a lot of hormones going on, and your classwork goes from, what it was in elementary school, and elementary just kind of shows that it's kind of basic. You're learning the basics to getting more difficult. And really teaching your kids how to be responsible for themselves and getting their classwork done, paying attention. My daughter came back, she's in 7th grade. Oh, I took notes in class today. And I'm like, wow. I mean, that's the first time she ever said that. But certainly there's been bullying over the years. There's been, oh my gosh, I have friends now. I mean, there's been a lot of ups and downs. And, I don't know what the ups and downs would have been if she was just here with me and the dogs and just like, yeah, I mean, every day is the same. But then you get out in the real world and you're going through your high school phase.
Absolutely. And again, there's people that are out there and they're like, well, I'm going to work at home. Like, who cares? So, again, maybe that doesn't necessarily impact them. I will say this, there's a lot of homeschooling programs that have regular field trips. And you're getting together with other people that are homeschooling their children, and you're going on actual field trips. And obviously, it's a much smaller class, if you will. And the class consists of, parent and child, and parent and child, and parent and child. But at least you're going out and you're doing activities, and then at least they can talk to those children that are of their age. So there's definitely some pluses there too that you don't think about. And I will tell you, there's certain people that excel at homeschooling, absolutely excel. I mean, I think we all know a couple public figures that were homeschooled, and they praise it like there's nothing better.
I mean, I'm not going to lie. There's definitely been times when I've thought, ugh, I would rather homeschool than have my child go through, whatever they're going through that's breaking their heart at school and, really just try to support them more. But then realistically, when you have a career, like you said, if the parents are working full time, they're not going to be able to keep up with that. And you just hope that the parents are realistic about it.
Absolutely. And again, I think, certain people have gone, okay, well, I'm going to do it until a certain age. And certain age might be junior high, might be high school. But then, again, you're kind of thrown into the mix as a child of, wait, I've been homeschooled and I'm going into high school, and oh my God, you went from being one person to a sea of 800 or 1,000 people in this high school, and nobody knows you, and you have no friends because your friends are your homeschool friends, and these people are all strangers, but they all have cliques already. So again, you've got to kind of think about big picture, what really is going to help your child.
I mean, that makes sense. So let's talk about the divorce and separation aspect of this because not everyone that has kids together was ever even married. But, people do separate and people do get divorced and they still have to somehow help parent their children. And I know you've already mentioned, who has the custody? What kind of custody do you have? So what kind of custody do you need to have to make the decision on your own versus the kind of custody you have where you have to really discuss and maybe mediate with your ex in order to make decisions on things like homeschooling?
So if you have if you have sole legal custody, if I'm the custodial parent, I have sole legal custody, I get to make decisions solely regarding education, religion, medical. So in that particular case, I would be the one that gets to make the decision as to whether or not child's going to be homeschooled, private school, public school, whatever the case may be.
And then I mean, that's pretty good. I mean, it's nice to have sole custody and not have to ask anyone. But you didn't get along with this person before, and now you've got to make these big decisions. And, some people have huge plans on behalf of their child, and they don't actually consider what kind of child it is, and what the child wants themselves as they get older and they have their own goals. Um, and then so you're dealing with a lot of the personality of the child, the personality of the exes, what everyone's goal is, and they may not all match between the child and the two parents. I mean, God, you must see a lot of crazy stuff in this area.
Yeah, it definitely gets a little crazy. And, I mean, there are parents that are, yes, I have joint legal. Okay, have you ever made a decision? No, my ex is really good at making those decisions. I trust her or him. Great. Those are the great parents that we like because, they're not running into court. They're not fighting. They're not having issues. They're just knowing full well that the other parent has the child's back and is going to do right. But I know I have the right to object. And that's what a lot of parents want. And then you have the other extreme, which is no, my way is the right way. And you have two parents, one that maybe is more reasonable and the other one that's going, nope, this is my way. And they start butting heads. And that's really where it's going to come into my world, where we're going to have to go into court. And ultimately, the court's going to have to make that determination. And it makes it very difficult because it's like, we've done this before, but do we give the child a vaccine? Do we give the child the COVID shot? No. And so ultimately, what ends up happening is the court needs to make the decision. It's the exact same thing here, where the court's making a decision as to which schooling system is better. It really shouldn't fall on a school. It really shouldn't fall on a judge. But at the end of the day, if the parties really can't agree, then the court's going to have to make that determination. So the ideal goal is to try to resolve it through conciliation or mediation or negotiation, because judges deciding, and it could be the flip of a coin.
I mean, it's true. And you know what? The judges don't even really want to make those kinds of decisions if they don't have to. They realize that you know your kid better than they do, and that people should just try to be mature and make the decision. I say that, but I've been there where it's so you passionately feel a certain way about a topic, and you hate that person. So you're less likely at that moment to hear anything that they say because so many things are clouding your vision from the past. And, really it's important to, get those clouds out of there and just try to figure out what's best for the kid, because there are pluses and minuses to both public schools and homeschooling.
And I think the best way to do that is really to have attorneys in that circumstances. Either have your own attorneys and or have a mediator or conciliator. Like, have somebody sit down, because they're going to be able to at least show you what your ex is saying, but in a different way. And that's really what you want to hear. You don't want to hear anything your ex is saying. You just, whatever, go away, right? Um, but then when somebody else says it, even if it's a person in the road, but we don't really want to get that far. So again, if it's the attorney that's saying, or a mediator that's saying, or a conciliator that's saying it, sometimes it makes more sense, or it's more palatable to hear. And it's just those things of, well, maybe we try something for a year and then let's see what happens. Versus, hey, let's do this for the next 15 years. Big difference.
I mean, that's a great idea too. I mean, you could definitely try it out and find out if it feels right for the child and for both parents. And, maybe it is better. And maybe it's not, because you don't know until you try half the time, I think. So that's a great suggestion. And it's also, I agree. I mean, having an attorney to go through something like this that is so important for your child's future, it's absolutely important. And if you are having an issue like this or any issue with real estate or family law, absolutely call Nicole Reeves Lavallee and her team because she's just fantastic, and the whole team is fantastic. She has other attorneys that are working for her that are very smart as well, and they can handle a lot of different types of cases and at least give you the information on, you don't know what you don't know. And I find whenever I sit down and talk to Nicole, I am really glad that I have the information that I do because I might have been just about to make a different decision, not knowing everything I needed to know from the legal standpoint. And I'm sure you see that a lot.
Well, yeah, and I think that the big picture is that, like you said, you don't know it. You've heard about it and whatever. And my friend had that issue, so yeah, sure. Mm, I don't know two people that had the exact same story. So again, could be similar, and it does happen. But a lot of times when people are telling me, and then they tell me the story of whoever, and they had this happen, I go, okay, but what about that? Oh, that didn't happen. And what about that? Oh, that didn't happen. What about that? Oh, that did. Okay, so it's a completely different story, and they're like, oh, yeah, I guess so. Great. So you're focusing on the one or two tidbits that are similar. I'm looking at the big picture, and that's why you really want to have an attorney to go, give me all the options, give me all the scenarios, because it's not alike. There could be similarities, but similarities doesn't mean it's the right fit for you.
Absolutely. I agree. Um, well, we've covered a lot with this topic. I'm just wondering if there's anything that you feel like we've missed or any advice, parting advice that we should give to the audience.
I think, one of the things that I can say is that when you're dealing with medical issues, child that really has a medical issue, leukemia, God forbid, things of that nature, cancer, then obviously that's a much easier choice to make the decision to homeschool because they might have problems where they're going into school and we know it's a cesspool of germs that child would actually hurt themselves by going to school. So those are a little bit easier situations. But again, we got to look at, well, just because my child doesn't want to go to school, does he not want to go to school because he's being bullied? Does he not want to go to school because, again, he's an introvert? Is it going to make him more of a hermit? Again, you have to look at all of those circumstances as to why your child is voicing this opinion. Because we need to get to the bottom issue. And once we know that, then we can fix it. And maybe it is, yes, it's homeschooling, but maybe it's homeschooling plus counseling, or maybe it's homeschool and counseling and, an extracurricular or volunteer program or something of that nature. But, you don't just stop with, I made one decision. We have to look at all the decisions that are going to benefit that child.
I mean, that's a good point. I hadn't thought about that. I mean, definitely an illness is a great reason to homeschool. I know that my new sister-in-law has homeschooled her two of her children for all of their lives. One of them is on the spectrum, and one of them was adopted from another country when she was, I think, 6 or 7. But I mean, it was just easier for her to assimilate because she knew a different language, and it was going to be difficult in the beginning to for her to really excel uh, with that language barrier. And then she's just gotten her GED, maybe a couple years later than most people would graduate, but it's quality work and she earned the degree and so the whole school homeschooling really works for them.
Absolutely. I mean, it is definitely beneficial for certain families.
And they do go on a lot of road trips and they can go on vacation whenever they want and there are so many fun perks to homeschooling. So I mean, so that's always great. Well, thank you so much for coming on today and opening our eyes to this new topic and, just really helping us face these kinds of issues head on with the right information. We really appreciate you, Nicole.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. And thank you, everyone out there, for watching this interview and all of the other interviews that we have that are really helping educate people and save you a lot of money in the long run on the legal side. So have a great weekend, and we will look forward to seeing you next week.